Hey folks, Lenny Lawson here, the Car Guru, with another episode of Enlightenment. I'm going to do what I can to explain a very frustrating thing that most consumers have if they're paying attention. There's a lot of people that could care less because all they're focused on is one thing, and that's the monthly payment when they buy a car. But yeah, we're going to talk about a sensitive subject. Let's call it that. Let's call it sensitive. I got a letter from a sensitive customer. He was mad. Well, it wasn't a letter, it was an email. And he wasn't mad at me, he was mad at my dealership for charging him a fee to buy a car. Now, why should we charge, or why do dealers charge fees? And what fees are reasonable to expect? Where did the fees come from? Because I was there at the birth of the documentary fee, or processing fee, or whatever your dealer wants to call it. I was there at the very birth of it. I was 17 years old, selling cars at Lawson Chevrolet. Well, let's see. Yeah, we had Mazda by then. Lawson Chevrolet Mazda in Greenville, Tennessee. Little dealership on a little side street. I don't know why the dealer we bought the dealership from decided to put a car dealership in a residential area. But he did. And that's where I was selling cars. And I'll never forget the first time I had to deal with a customer who was fussing over a processing fee. How much was the fee? $25. He could not understand why he has to pay $3,500 for a new Impala, pay the sales tax to the state of Tennessee, and then pay me another $25 for doing the paperwork. He couldn't understand it, and I couldn't explain it. I really didn't know, because a year before that, we didn't have a processing fee or a documentary fee. Let's just call it a doc fee, and it doesn't pay for a boat dock. That's short for documentary. But what is it? What are you getting for your money when you pay a documentary fee? Here's what you're getting. Nothing. You're getting nothing. And why does it exist? Well, it all started back, like I said, in the 70s when, all of the manufacturers started cutting margins in the 70s. It was costing them more and more to build cars, so they just started cutting dealer margins. I remember back in the early 70s, if you sold just a typical GM product like we were selling, let's say it's an Impala, it had about 18% markup. If it was a Corvette, that was the highest, it was like 23%. Now, it's anywhere between 5 and 8%. So you can see what's happened to margins. Now, cars are a lot more expensive now. And a lot of people say, well, cars have gotten a lot more expensive, and when you take a smaller percentage of a bigger number, it's still a pretty big number. I won't argue with you on that. But as competitive as the market is, and because every dealer is willing to sell just about anything for the invoice price, there's not enough margin there to survive, and that's why doc fees are where they are now. They range anywhere from $500 or $600. I mean, in large cities and on certain products, they'll jack them up to the mid thousands, and people have just gotten used to it. There are still some people, like the guy that sent us the email. He was just upset. He said, I want a refund. Well, you can't get a refund because in our particular state, they decided that you could charge a doc fee. You can charge whatever you want to, but you have to charge the same fee to everybody, and you have to disclose it. Those were the two requirements. As long as somebody knows what they're paying. But see, here's one of the problems with that. A lot of dealers use a negotiating methodology called Foursquare. And I'm not going to get into that, but there's no place to disclose the fees there. It just says, they'll give you a price, like we'll trade for $25,000 plus tax and fees. You've seen it, right? If you've negotiated a car deal. Now, what we do at our dealership is we don't use just a sheet of paper and a magic marker and write plus tax and fees. We break it all down. We tell you what you're paying for the car, what you're getting for your trade, what the trade difference is, how much is the tax, how much, if there's fees, how much they are, including registration fees, which we do for our customers if they want us to. Well, we do it as a general rule. We'll register your vehicle, transfer your tags. We charge you for it, but we charge you the same thing as they charge at the courthouse. That's fair, isn't it? But for somebody to come in and say, hey, what's this fee for? What's this doc fee? And I just tell them what it is. It's profit. That's exactly what it is. Anybody that tells you, well, that's for the cost of, filing for credit and taking the credit applications and doing the type. No, it's not. That's not what it's for. So you'll have some people say, well, you can't do that. You can't charge it. Yes, we can. As far as pricing new vehicles or used vehicles, you can price them any way you want to. That's why they call it suggested retail price, manufacturer's suggested retail price. You'll see one on the window of every new car. And in some dealers, they price their used cars. They'll write it on the windshield, on sale now, and they'll mark through the previous price and put the new price. Or there won't be any prices on the used cars. That is on the lot. That's what I'm talking about, on the lot. And you'll have to get it from a salesperson. If you go online, most dealerships price all their stuff online. Well, does that protect you from fees? No. But you're going to have to find them. And most people just don't do that. Now, I have a competitor that has some amazing fees, way more than the doc fee, and I'll get into that here in just a second. Okay, so do you notice a difference in the sound quality of this segment versus the previous segment? You should, because my computer somehow shut off my microphone and was using the microphone on my cell phone. It does that occasionally. Just tries to throw me a curveball, but I turned off the preamp and turned it back on, and voila, here we are. Okay, so we've established that a processing fee or a doc fee is inevitable. You can decide whether to pay it or not. It is legal. The dealer, I guess, if he wants to risk having to refund every customer he's ever sold a car to, he could charge you a lower doc fee. Some dealers will do this, though, and you just have to ask, is that negotiable? And they may say, well, no. Say, well, I'm not going to buy the car. And one of the things they could do is drop the price of the car enough to overcome the fee. So that's something that you can ask them to do. They may not do it. They may be done negotiating. And then you have to decide, well, am I going to walk away from this deal or am I going to proceed? Now, the other dealer that I was telling you about, and there are many across the country that do this, they have what they call an addendum sticker. So if on a new car, you have the factory window sticker. You know what it looks like if you've shopped or bought a new car. But there'll be another sticker beside the sticker, and dealers call it an addendum. And what is typically on there would be like accessories that the dealer has put on that are not included in MSRP. Let's say that he put on rain shields or bug guards or a bed liner or a spray-in bed liner or a different bumper or trailer hitches. There's any type of accessory that he adds to it, he'll put it on that addendum. But there are other things that may be on that addendum, like some type of a protection package. The weird one is where there's a marketing adjustment. So there are dealers that will literally put, well, I know this one dealer will put over $3,000 marketing adjustment. What is that? Well, that's additional margin that he can use to show you more for your trade-in or to show a bigger discount. What if he runs an ad on that vehicle and he's competing against another dealer who doesn't have that addendum? Well, he can knock off $5,000 or $6,000 off of his pumped up price, whereas the other dealer going off MSRP can only knock off a couple thousand. But the average consumer looks at that and says, wow, that dealer's offering $8,000 off, and this dealer's only offering $2,000 off. When you do the math and you see what kind of original number they're starting from, then you can see that there's really no difference. Or the guy that's playing it straight, doing it the right way, is actually cheaper. Now, if I walked up to a dealership I'm not in the car business, and I believe I would think this way. If I walked into a dealership and they took me over to a car that I was interested in, and I saw it had one of those really bogus, highly inflated addendums on it, I would say to the salesperson, either we completely tear that out of the windshield and don't talk about that, or I'm leaving. And in this particular dealer's case, not only is he charging that, but there's another almost $1,000 doc fee, processing fee. By the time a customer gets into the finance office and they're signing the paperwork, they have no idea what they paid for that car. They haven't done the math. The only thing they've looked at is they got 84 months at $489 a month. And somehow they have justified that, but they have no idea what they paid for the car. And when they see the breakdown, it's too late because, they're lying in bed, middle of the night, all of a sudden their eyes pop open, say, wait a minute. I just did the math on that. That doesn't sound right. So they wake up, stumble into the kitchen, pull out the paperwork, and they see all the stuff that they bought that they didn't know they bought. So I guess there's two questions you have to ask yourself, or most people would be saying, is that legal? Is it legal to do that? It is if they disclose it and you sign all the paperwork. Is it legal for them to have those charges and not disclose them properly on their website? No, it is not. So why do they do it? Because they get by with it. There's nobody enforcing the law. The Tennessee Motor Vehicle Commission, they're just not paying attention to that right now. They're so busy because they've cut, all the investigators are so busy with trivial things, they don't have time to enforce the law. Now, is it ethical? No, it's not ethical either. Some of the things, doc fee is legal, but it's not legal if it's not disclosed. And how do you prove that? Because you signed the paperwork that has it printed on there. You can't go back into a dealership, a day or a week after you bought the vehicle and say, well, they didn't tell me about this. Because the judge, if you sue them, the judge is going to look at that and say, well, you signed it. Did you not read what you were signing? Now, dealers can be charged with fraud, if you can prove fraud. But that's tough. Do you want to go to court, pick a jury, do all that stuff over $1,500 when it will cost you $5,000 just to go to court? And if you lose, you got to pay everybody's fees. That's why a lot of dealers break the law, because they know it's too hard for anybody to do anything about. So you have to be a smart consumer. It's on you. Buyer beware. You walk into a dealership, it has a big addendum, then you walk out. They pull out one of those sheets of paper and start drawing, X's and start writing numbers in there, and they put tax and fees. You better get a breakdown of what that is. Tell them you want to see a printed worksheet or a deal sheet or a buyer's order or a sales contract. They call them all different kinds of things. Print that out. Show me everything that's included in this price and payment that you're quoting me. And then you can fuss about that. You've got something to look at before you sign the paperwork. Most people refer to a fee as something you don't have a choice in. When I bought my house and financed it many, many years ago, there were all kinds of fees on there. There's an appraisal fee. There was mortgage insurance. I can't remember all of them. I had to pay points, to buy down my rate or to get the good rate. It was just, what's all this? It's just other ways for the banks to make money. Who else charges fees? Well, you don't have to pay fees at Walmart or at the grocery store. If you buy a lot of other big ticket items like a refrigerator or whatever, they don't have fees. So why do you have to do it at a car dealership? Because they charge them, and they can legally. So that's just the way it is. And the important thing is for you to know why. And I've told you why. It's because dealers are trying to make up for the profit margins that they've given up over the years to the manufacturer. And then the fact that they can. It's legal. As long as, again, that you know about it, you see it, it's disclosed, and they charge the same thing to everybody because you can't discriminate. So how do you get out of paying it? As far as a doc fee, you have to negotiate your way out of it. You're going to have to pay it. It's going to appear on your paperwork because the dealer can get in trouble if he doesn't charge one customer and then charges another one. You have to be consistent with that. But you can negotiate just about anything. I mean, if they come at you with a certain price on an extended warranty or on a bed liner or something like that, if they say, well, it's going to cost you $1,500 for a bed cover. Well, you can look on Google or go to Amazon and look it up right there while you're sitting there and say, well, this one's only $8.95, and it's the same brand. More than likely, if they've already, you've already agreed the numbers on the deal, they'll probably sell you the bed cover for that particular price, but not if you don't do the research first. A lot of money is made by dealers after the purchase on accessories. It's not a real profitable thing for dealers, but they can make a little bit of money selling bed covers and spraying bed liners and other types of accessories. And people like to personalize their vehicles after they buy them. I mean, we sold a Ford Bronco a couple weeks ago that had the removable doors, all of them do, and then they had these bars that you could put so you could at least be safe going down the road and, not fall out of the vehicle like these people driving Jeeps take the doors off and hang their foot out on the fender. At least Ford has the decency to put some, make an accessory door that is made up of tubular steel. But, people like to customize them. We had a guy put a winch on an F-250 the other day. He wanted to be able to pull people out of ditches. So, I mean, you can buy a lot of accessories from the dealer, and one of the advantages of doing that, if it is the same brand as their product, comes through their parts department, then it has the same guarantee as the vehicle that you're buying does. And so that's comforting. But one thing I want to caution you on is do not confuse the fee, the processing fee, with the other things that they're going to try to sell you, like extended warranties, gap insurance, all that. Those are aftermarket products that are sold in a finance office. And then sometimes the finance office will also sell accessories. Most of the time it's somebody else in the dealership that's selling accessories. All that stuff is negotiable, the price that you pay for it. I mean, you don't have to lay down on accessories. You don't have to lay down on the price of a warranty. If they hit you a price, say, this warranty is going to cost you $4,000, say, well, would you take 3? They're going to look at you funny, say, no, we have to charge the same price to everybody. No, you don't. I know it's negotiable. I can go down the road and buy an extended warranty from a dealer selling your same brand of vehicle. And you can shop around on that just like you shop around on the car. If you know that you're going to be interested in a service contract or an extended warranty, then go ahead and shop around on that too, because that could save you a bunch of money when you get in that finance office with that slick-talking finance manager. Some of them are really good, at making it sound very attractive. You just have to keep your resistance up. Okay, I'll be back in just 1 minute. So My Car Guru has kind of become a boot camp for car buyers. And if you listen to enough episodes, if you go to the podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, if you go to buzzsprout.com, you can find it. Just type in My Car Guru podcast, and you can listen to any of them anytime. And if you scroll down through there, you'll find the main topic that I'm going to be talking about. So the more you know when you walk into a service department or a parts department to buy parts, or you go into a showroom, you're shopping for a car, or you're trying to figure out the best way to finance the car, or how to understand leasing. It's all there. You just have to search by topic. But it is a boot camp because you need to learn how to be resilient and how to resist the pressure that you're going to face, unfortunately, when you go to a lot of car dealerships to buy cars. Some of them have a circus atmosphere. There's all kinds of balloons and police tape and, just stickers all over the windows, and the salespeople are all hyped up, and, that's a hornet's nest that you're walking into. Some of them are more laid back. I mean, you may walk around on the car lot or walk into the showroom and there's nobody to be found. There's a receptionist there. And then, some of them are too laid back. I mean, how do you want to be approached? I mean, I want to be waited on fairly quickly. I don't want to be pounced on. When I go to a restaurant, even, I like to sit there for a minute or two to get my bearings before somebody says, "What would y'all like to drink?" I'd like to look at the menu and eat some peanuts or do something. Just, you have a pace. Everybody has a pace that is acceptable to them. I've had customers that say, "Well, your people just acted like I wasn't even there." Well, we try to give our customers a little bit of space. If you come to the lot, our goal is to wait on you sometime in the next 5 minutes. And there are a lot of people think that's not fast enough, and some people think, "Get away from me. That's too fast. Go get back on your tree limb and just wait, for me to get ready." What's the right time for you? It's different for everybody. But it's when they finally do approach you, and it's the things that you say, the questions that you ask, what you allow them, how you allow them to lead you through the process. If you've got a salesperson that's asking you a bunch of questions, that's a good sign. That's a really good sign. Answer his questions. Unless they're questions like, "What do you want your payment to be?" Don't answer that one. Or, "What kind of credit you got?" There are actually salespeople that will walk up to customers and ask them if they have good credit. Because if they have really bad credit, they don't want to waste their time. Rather than asking the customer, "What are you trying to accomplish today? Would you like to just look around and test drive some vehicles and get comfortable with the idea of buying a new car? Do you want to have numbers today, what it would cost approximately to buy a new car or a used car?" And to be able to handle yourself when you walk into a dealership, a high-pressure service department, where the salespeople are paid on a real high commission level on what they sell. And they're wanting to sell you all these expensive flushes and nitrogen in your tires and, things that you may or may not need. You got to be able to resist that. And hopefully, that's what boot camp with the Car Guru will do for you. Well, thanks for listening to this episode. You can always call me or text me. I got a bunch of them while I was on my cruise, and I answered most of them, but there were a few that I had to do yesterday. But 423-552-2020, you can text me any question. I'll answer it. If you want to send me an email, it's LennyLawson2020@gmail.com. Well, thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of My Car Guru.